Sarah's hand trembled as she rewound the footage again. Karen's movements were too confident, too rehearsed. She wasn't snooping, she was taking the casual way. She glanced around. The lack of hesitation when she opened the box set wasn't the first time. Sarah had always heard mail tampering was a serious crime, a federal offense. But watching someone do it to you, that made it feel deeply personal. Her breath caught in her throat as she paused the screen on Karen, slipping a white envelope into her coat pocket. She knew that envelope it was from her doctor's office. The pharmacy card had been inside, her only refill for the month. That night, she barely slept. She kept checking the camera feed every time headlights passed her house. Her nerves felt like frayed wire. What if Karen knew she had cameras now? Would she come back? The next morning, Sarah gathered every piece of evidence she could find. Screenshots, video clips, a printed list of the missing mail. She wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. She took the footage to the local police station. The desk officer seemed skeptical at first, but when she played the video, his demeanor shifted. "That's your mailbox?" he asked. "Yes. And she doesn't live at your address?" "No. She's my HOA president." He raised an eyebrow and leaned forward, watching the screen again. "You need to file a report with the postal inspector. This is federal." The word federal made Sarah feel both nervous and vindicated. She left the station with a case number and instructions to follow up. By the time she got home, she had already filled out the online form for the USPS investigation services. She uploaded the footage and included a detailed timeline. Just after noon, she heard a knock at the door. She froze. It was Karen, smiling, like nothing happened. She held a printed citation in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Good afternoon, Sarah. I noticed your security camera wasn't approved under HOA guidelines. We require an architectural review for any permanent installations." Sarah stared, rage bubbling just under the surface. She took a breath. "Would you like to see what the camera caught?" Karen blinked. "Excuse me, I have footage," Sarah said, stepping aside. "Of you, at my mailbox, removing my mail." The smile faltered. Karen stepped back slightly, her hand tightening on the clipboard. "I don't know what you think you saw, but that's a very serious accusation." "I agree," Sarah said. "So do the police." Karen didn't respond. She turned and walked away, quicker than usual. No parting words. No fake wave. Sarah shut the door and locked it, her heartbeat thudding against her ribs. An hour later, a letter appeared in her inbox, this time, digital. Notice of violation. Non-compliance surveillance equipment. Fines pending. Karen was retaliating. Sarah stood by her window, watching the street. For the first time since she moved in, the neighborhood didn't look peaceful. It looked fake, like a movie set built to distract from the rot behind the walls. But she wasn't going to be scared off. Not now. Not after what Karen did. She opened her laptop, saved a backup of the footage to a cloud drive, then made one more copy on a flash drive. Karen could find her. Karen could threaten her, but she couldn't erase the truth. And Sarah was ready to fight by morning. The air in the house felt different, thicker. Sarah sat by her kitchen table, staring at the violation notice Karen had emailed her. It was printed, in bold, threatening language. A $150 fine for her unapproved surveillance installation, and a demand to cease operation of her doorbell camera immediately or face additional penalties. It was laughable. Her camera had caught a crime on video, and now they were trying to punish her for it. Sarah clicked open the footage again. She knew every second by heart. Now Karen approaching in broad daylight, reaching into her mailbox, taking mail, slipping the envelope into her coat, and walking away without an ounce of shame. It was undeniable, and yet, Karen had the gall to accuse her of violating community rules. Sarah emailed the HOA board. She was careful with her words, polite, factual, restrained. She attached the video and included a copy of the police report. She asked one question. Is the HOA in the business of protecting someone caught stealing federal mail, or enforcing rules fairly across all residents? She hit send. An hour later, her neighbor Linda from 3 houses down knocked. Quiet, woman mid-50s, always seen trimming her rose bushes. "I saw the footage," Linda said without small talk. Sarah's eyebrows rose. "How?" "It's going around," Linda replied, glancing around before stepping closer. "You weren't the only one missing mail. Karen's been snooping for a while, but no one ever caught her, so why didn't anyone speak up?" Sarah asked. "Because she's retaliated against everyone who did. My husband got fined for a missing house number plaque. Another neighbor had her Christmas lights cited as visual pollution. People stopped pushing back." Sarah's jaw clenched. "She's been running the board like a dictator." Linda nodded. "And the worst part is she's been tampering with the board election ballots." Sarah froze. "What?" "Last year I ran for a board seat, mailed my own ballot, and had 4 others supporting me. Somehow, all of them got lost." Sarah stepped back in shock. It explained so much why Karen always seemed untouchable, why no one else ever challenged her power. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was rigging the system. "Do you still have the camera footage?" Linda asked. "I've made backups," Sarah said. 3 different places." Linda smiled. "Good. Don't trust a cloud alone." Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. A new email. This time, Not from Karen. From another board member, Nis Chang. She opened it immediately. I reviewed your footage. I want you to know not all of us agree with Karen. She's done this before, but no one's ever had proof. Sarah stared at the screen. She hadn't expected an ally inside the board. Maybe the tides were finally starting to turn. That night, she logged into the community forum, something she hadn't done since moving in. She posted a short, composed message, along with a still frame of Karen at her mailbox. No anger, just the facts. For residents who've experienced similar issues, please reach out privately. I believe we're dealing with a serious violation of trust and possibly more. Within 20 minutes, Sarah had 12 private messages, 12 stories, 12 people, missing mail, mysterious finds, unapproved votes, things that had happened for years, and everyone had just taken it. Until now, Sarah felt something shift inside her. A quiet resolve. She hadn't wanted a war, but Karen had. Started one the day she opened that mailbox. And this time, Karen wasn't the only one watching, because now, the entire neighborhood was watching back. The retaliation didn't take long. 2 days after Sarah's post on the community forum, she woke to find a thick manila envelope taped to her front door. It wasn't from the post office, nor did it have a return address, just a single word written in black marker, urgent. She pulled it off and opened it at her kitchen table, her fingers stiff with caution. Inside were 4 separate citations, one for a non-HOA approved mailbox paint color, another for visible pet food bowls on the front porch, and 2 more for failure to maintain consistent lawn edging and unsanctioned communication with HOA members. Regarding board matters, Sarah stared at the last one the longest. Unsanctioned communication. She almost laughed but her hands were trembling too much. Karen wasn't even pretending anymore. She was using the HOA to punish her for speaking out. Sarah expected. As much she had prepared herself mentally for it, what she hadn't expected was the 5th document inside the envelope, a formal notice of intent to place a lien on her property. Her breath caught. A lien? The document claimed she owed $1,150 in fines, plus $400 in administrative processing for non-compliance. The letter threatened legal action and property encumbrance if she didn't pay or respond within 10 business days. It wasn't just intimidation now. It was financial warfare. Sarah set the papers down and pulled out her phone, dialing Dennis Changa, only board member who'd shown any sign of reason. He picked up after 2 rings. She's accelerating, she said without greeting. I just got a threat of lien over fabricated violations. Dennis exhaled heavily. Karen's scared. That video of yours, it's making its way through the community. I've had 5 people email me directly asking how to file complaints. So what do I do now? Sarah asked. Dennis paused, then said, you file 1, 2, officially, with the county. And if you want to take her down, get a lawyer who understands HOA law, because Karen's about to go nuclear. Sarah had already started researching lawyers 2 days ago. She hadn't hired one yet, figured she'd wait for the right moment. Apparently, that moment had arrived. That afternoon she met with a local attorney, Gloria Santos, who specialized in property law and HOA abuse cases. Gloria watched the mailbox footage silently, then looked up at Sarah. I've handled 6 HOA cases in the last 2 years. None this clean. You've got her cold, and the lien threat. That's abuse of power textbook. Can I fight this? Without spending a fortune, Sarah asked. You might not have to spend anything. If we send a pre-litigation letter and she backs down, this could go away fast. But if she doesn't, we go public. News, local media, social groups. Pressure works wonders when the HOA is scared of its image. Sarah nodded. Do it. That night, she sent an update to the community forum. In light of recent threats made against my property, I've retained legal counsel. For those who've experienced similar intimidation or financial retaliation from the HOA, you are not alone. I intend to fight this and I hope others will too. Within hours, her inbox exploded. Stories from other residents poured in. Elderly couples find 4 invisible fence lines. Single parents cited 4 noisy children. Even a man who claimed Karen had moved his trash can to stage a violation photo, but it wasn't until 11:47 p.m. that Sarah got the message that made her blood run cold. It was anonymous. Be careful. Karen knows you went to the police. She's done worse before. Much worse. Watch your cameras. Sarah read it twice, and then, quietly, she walked to the window and looked out across the street. Karen's lights were off, but her blinds were tilted just enough for someone to look out. Sarah hadn't slept more than a few hours since the anonymous message. Her nerves were wound tight, every creak of the floorboards setting her heart into overdrive. She started double-checking her locks, watching her cameras every morning and every night. But for the past 2 days, Karen had gone unusually silent. No new citations, no emails, no glares from across the street. Nothing, which worried Sarah more than the noise. On the 3rd night, as she was settling in with a cup of tea, she got a call from Dennis. I thought you should know, he said cautiously. Karen just sent out an emergency board meeting notice for tomorrow night. It's not public, no homeowner access. Sarah sat forward. What's on the agenda? she didn't say. Just marked it as compliance violations and security risks. My guess? You? Can she do that? Hold a closed-door session like that? Dennis hesitated. Not legally. But she'll do it anyway, and cite it as a board-only emergency discussion. It's a loophole. And with 3 of the 5 board seats in her pocket, she can push through whatever she wants. Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. Can you record it? No? She'll confiscate phones and make everyone sign a confidentiality clause. She's done it before. Sarah's stomach twisted. So she's going to smear me without giving me a chance to speak. Dennis lowered his voice. There's more. I heard she's planning to file a restraining order, claiming you're harassing her. Sarah nearly dropped her mug. What? On what grounds? Threatening behavior? Defamation? Using video surveillance to intimidate a board official. She stole from my mailbox. I know, Dennis said. But that doesn't matter to her. If she gets that order, it complicates everything. She could force you to take down your cameras. And where she use it to discredit the video. The silence on the line was heavy. Finally, Sarah spoke. I'm not letting her win. The next day, Sarah walked into the county clerk's office and filed a restraining order of her own. Her lawyer had prepared the paperwork, complete with the footage, the police report, and sworn statements from 3 neighbors. By the afternoon, a process server delivered the papers directly to Karen's front porch. Sarah watched from her window as Karen opened the envelope. She didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She smiled. Later that night, the motion sensor near Sarah's driveway triggered. She checked her camera feed and spotted a shadow moving just outside the camera's reach. Not on her property on the sidewalk, but close enough to be intentional. The figure stood there for exactly 10 minutes, not moving, not pacing, just watching. She called the police, but by the time the cruiser arrived, the figure was gone. The officer examined the footage. They were careful. Stayed off your lawn. But it's clear they wanted you to know they were there. The officer gave her a sympathetic look. You need brighter floodlights. Maybe a second camera for your side yard. Sarah nodded. But inside, she was boiling. This wasn't about rules anymore. It wasn't about mailboxes or paint colors. This was a power play and Karen wasn't hiding it. The next morning, Sarah posted a public video to the neighborhoodforum.com/measured, but crystal clear. She walked viewers through the footage again. Then she said, I've filed legal action. I'm standing up not just for myself but for every homeowner afraid to speak. If you've been silenced, you don't have to stay quiet anymore. She ended with a quiet challenge. Karen wants to play games. Let's play in daylight. Hours passed. Views climbed. Comments poured in. But one stood out. It was anonymous again. You think video is all you need? Karen's got something worse. Check your back fence before it's too late. Sarah froze. Then she grabbed her phone and walked outside. What she found behind the fence made her blood run cold. Sarah hesitated at the back door. Flashlight in hand, the anonymous message echoing in her head. Check your back fence before it's too late. The backyard was silent. Only the occasional rustle of wind through the trees accompanied her footsteps as she made her way across the lawn. She scanned the yard slowly, her breath fogging in the cool night air. Duke, her golden retriever, whined quietly through the window as she stepped closer to the fence line. That part of the yard had always felt a little too quiet. The back faced a narrow alley that ran behind several homes, a spot no one really walked. Even when she moved in, Sarah had felt something vaguely off about it. She'd planned to install motion lighting back there, but it had never seemed urgent. Until now. She reached the edge and swept the flashlight beam across the wooden fence. Nothing, just planks, leaves, a few dead twigs. Then something caught the light metal. She stepped closer. There, wedged just beneath the lowest fence plank, half buried in dirt, was a small rusted tin box. Not new, weather-worn, but clearly placed there recently. And right next to it, Sarah's missing prescription bag, still sealed, now partially soaked from rain. Her stomach dropped. She knelt and opened the tin with shaking hands. Inside were photocopies, dozens of them, documents mostly. Personal ones. Some were hers, emails she'd sent to the HOA printed out, copies of her mortgage, her phone number and emergency contact form from her HOA application, but others were not. There were sheets labeled with other residents' names, photos of houses, notes scribbled in tiny handwriting, leaves bins out past 7 p.m., pets off leash last Thursday, unmowed grass line. I had a list of complaints with fake names signed next to them. Sarah's blood went ice cold. This wasn't Karen enforcing rules. This was a file, a dossier, on people. Suddenly, something moved behind the fence. A soft snap like a twig breaking. Sarah spun the flashlight up and aimed it through the slats. No one. But when she stood and backed away, her flashlight flickered, then went dark. She bolted inside and locked the door behind her, heart hammering. Duke barked until she closed the curtains. She sat in her kitchen, staring at the tin, and called her lawyer. Gloria listened in silence as Sarah recounted everything. Ben said, you need to report that immediately, and we're filing for an emergency injunction against her. If she's collecting data like this, it's not just HOA overreach. This is stalking. Sarah agreed, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wasn't just watching, she was preparing something. The next morning, Sarah took the tin box to the police station. She met with the same officer from her earlier complaint. When he saw the documents, his expression changed. "This isn't just evidence of mail tampering anymore," he said. "This shows intent, planning, and possibly harassment or surveillance. Without consent, we'll open a wider investigation." Later that day, Dennis called. "She's furious," he whispered. "Someone on the board told her you went to the police again. She's saying you broke into her property to steal those documents." Sarah laughed bitterly. "Of course she is, but those weren't on her property." Dennis sighed. "She's trying to hold an emergency vote to expel you from the HOA entirely. She wants to claim you're a danger to the neighborhood." "She wants me gone," Sarah said. "Yeah, but people are starting to listen now. That video you posted, it's being shared in 3 neighboring communities. Other HOAs are watching." That night, Sarah posted again to the forum. This time, she attached images of the file, redacted names, circled notes, evidence. The caption was simple: "Is this who you want running your community?" She hit post and sat back. But across the street, Karen's porch light flicked on, and someone stepped out. Only it wasn't Karen, it was a man. Tall, bald, dressed in black. And he was walking directly toward Sarah's house. The knock came with terrifying, calm, not pounding, not frantic. Just steady, 3 measured thuds on the front door. Sarah stood frozen in her hallway, the tin box of evidence still on the table behind her. Duke growling low from the other room. She glanced at the screen connected to her front camera. The man who had stepped out of Karen's house stood there. No expression, no movement. He looked straight into the lens, as if he knew she was watching. She didn't recognize him. Mid-40s, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, wearing a black windbreaker and gloves despite the mild weather. Something about him was cold, controlled, and out of place in a quiet cul-de-sac. Her phone was already in her hand. She dialed 911 and whispered to the dispatcher, "There's a strange man at my front door. He came from a neighbor's house. I don't know him. I feel unsafe." The dispatcher assured her an officer was en route. Outside, the man knocked again. This time, louder. Sarah stepped back and locked the deadbolt. She wasn't about to open that door, not after everything that had happened. But then, the man spoke. "I'm not here to hurt you. My name's Anthony. I used to live here. Before Karen had me evicted." Sarah froze. "Evicted?" He looked directly into the doorbell camera. "She did it to me, too. I lost everything." Curiosity, or maybe caution laced with desperation, made her speak through the intercom. "What do you want to help you stop her?" Before Sarah could respond, flashing lights lit up the street. A patrol car rolled to a stop in front of her house, tires grinding against the curb. The man raised his hands and stepped back willingly. As an officer stepped out, hand resting near his holster, "I called him," Sarah said through the door. "He's not threatening me, just unexpected." The officer questioned the man while Sarah watched from inside. A second officer came to her door, took her statement, and confirmed the man's ID. His name was Anthony Delgado. He used to own a home 2 streets down, sold it under pressure from mounting fines, litigation threats, and what he described as personal sabotage. "She destroyed my life," he told the officers, "and now she's doing it again." The officers let him go after verifying he wasn't a threat, but advised him to leave the property. He nodded and gave Sarah one final look before heading toward his car. Later that night, Sarah found a plain manila envelope at her doorstep. Inside was a single flash drive and a note. "I recorded everything. Use it wisely." Anthony ran the drive on her laptop. It contained folders, dozens of them. Audio recordings, HOA meeting videos, documents with Karen's signature. One particularly chilling video showed Karen talking in her backyard, unaware she was being recorded. "She needs to be pushed out, little by little. You take the mail, you apply pressure, you make them feel like outsiders. They either conform or move." Sarah replayed it twice to make sure she'd heard it right. This wasn't just one woman on a power trip. It was a calculated system, a manipulation playbook. She had done it before, and now, it was all unraveling. She called Gloria, her lawyer, and forwarded the files. "This is the nail in the coffin, right?" "Oh, Sarah," Gloria replied. "This isn't the nail. This is the sledgehammer." That same night, someone vandalized Sarah's backyard. Her camera caught only a blur, but the message was clear. Someone had slashed her garden hose, knocked over her trash bins, and spray-painted one word on her back fence. "Liar." Sarah stared at it from her window, pulse thudding in her ears. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning to burn. The word liar stayed on Sarah's fence longer than she wanted. Not because she couldn't clean it, but because she didn't want to, not yet. It was evidence now. Part of the story. Another breadcrumb in a trail that was finally leading somewhere. And she wasn't the only one watching it. Neighbors began slowing down as they passed. Some paused, stared, whispered. A few came to her door not to condemn, but to talk, to confess, to thank her. One by one, the silence cracked. On Thursday night, Gloria sent the Sasandis' letter to Karen and the entire HOA board. Attached was a file labeled Anthony Evidence. Full. Gloria's letter was sharp and surgical. Abuse of authority, harassment, mail tampering, fraud, defamation, and misuse of HOA funds. But it wasn't just legal pressure that worked. It was the video. Sarah uploaded a clip to the private neighborhood forum, the one where Karen, unaware she was being recorded, spoke about breaking residents who didn't fall in line. She included a short message. This is what happens when no one holds power accountable. If you've ever felt bullied, threatened, or silenced, now's your chance to speak. The post exploded. Within 24 hours, over 40 comments appeared. Karen fined us $500 for planting lavender. She accused me of vandalism when my sprinkler malfunctioned. She threatened to report me for hoarding because I had a garage sale for the first time. People weren't whispering behind blinds, they were standing up together. Dennis messaged Sarah that evening, "You've got the numbers. It's time for a recall vote." The process moved quickly once the momentum caught fire. Gloria helped several residents file a formal petition to recall the HOA board president. They needed 51% of the community's support to trigger the vote. They got 63%. Karen didn't respond publicly. She didn't need to. Her silence said it all. But the retaliation didn't stop. More threats, more vague violations, more anonymous notes. One neighbor found a dead rat left on their porch in a paper bag. By the time the special HOA meeting was scheduled, the entire neighborhood buzzed with unease. Lawn chairs lined the sidewalks outside the clubhouse. Reporters from a local news station were even seen filming from across the street. Sarah arrived early, flash drive in hand, wearing a simple navy blouse and jeans. She didn't want to look like a warrior, just a neighbor, a resident, a person. With a voice, Karen arrived late, flanked by 2 board members. She didn't make eye contact with anyone. Her hair was pulled tight. Her smile was gone. Inside the meeting room, Dennis called for the vote. Gloria stood at Sarah's side. So did Anthony. Sarah didn't say much, just showed the evidence. Karen's voice, the dossier files, the mail theft footage, the vandalism, the threats, a printed timeline, witness statements. There was no room left for doubt. When Dennis finally called the vote, it was swift. Yes to remove Karen from the HOA board. Hands rose. Then more. Sarah turned to count nearly the entire room. But just as Karen's removal was confirmed and murmurs of relief began to rise, Karen spoke. She stood, calm and cold. Her voice rang out. "This is all very dramatic, but you've made a mistake." Everyone turned. She pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to Dennis. Inside is a legal claim filed earlier today against Sarah for defamation, harassment, and distribution of falsified content. And I intend to pursue it to the full extent of the law. Gasps rippled through the room. Sarah felt her legs weaken for the first time in weeks. Gloria stepped forward. "That claim won't survive discovery." Karen just smiled. "Maybe, or maybe I don't need to win in court, just in public." She turned and walked out, but not before whispering to Sarah as she passed. "This isn't over." Karen's threat lingered long after she walked out of the meeting room. The manila envelope, now in Dennis's hands, sat like a time bomb on the table. The board members exchanged anxious looks. The residents, who had come seeking justice, now murmured in uncertainty. Sarah didn't move. She'd expected pushback. She just hadn't expected it to look so smug. Outside the meeting room, reporters clustered near the sidewalk. Karen hadn't said a word to them, but Sarah had a decision to make: stay silent or speak. She stepped out into the light of the cameras. "I've done nothing wrong," she told them plainly. "Everything I've shared has been true, and I stand by it. If Karen wants to sue me, she can. But she'll have to answer for every document, every video, and every victim she's silenced over the years." The clip aired that night on the local news. And the tide finally shifted for good. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved fast. The new interim HOA president Dennis officially overturned Sarah's violations and froze all outstanding fines Karen had issued. Residents formed a legal support group to gather and share more evidence. Karen's influence crumbled like wet paper. Gloria filed a counterclaim, suing Karen for damages, harassment, and emotional distress on Sarah's behalf. With Anthony's recordings and Sarah's footage, the legal case became airtight. The court quickly ruled in Sarah's favor on preliminary motions dismissing Karen's suit as frivolous and malicious in nature, but the final blow didn't come in court. It came from an unexpected place. The Postal Inspector General's office. An official letter arrived at Sarah's door. Karen was now under federal investigation for mail theft, impersonation of postal personnel, and obstruction of delivery. Her earlier denial, once vague and dismissive, had become outright perjury. 3 weeks after the investigation was made, public Karen was arrested, quietly, in the early morning hours. As neighbors peeked through their curtains, no one cheered, no one cried, they just watched. The neighborhood changed after that. Meetings became open and fair. Residents who had once feared citations started planting flowers again, letting their kids ride bikes without fear of petty retaliation. It wasn't perfect, but it was finally free. Sarah declined the invitation to run for the HOA board. "Not here to lead," she told Dennis with a smile. "I just wanted to live in peace." But her story didn't vanish. Weeks later, a woman in a nearby county reached out to her with a message. "We have a Karen too, and your story gave us the courage to stand up." That was worth more than any victory. One evening, Sarah walked her dog Duke around the cul-de-sac, passing the house that used to belong to Karen. A for sale sign now sat in the yard, flapping gently in the breeze. New grass had grown over the vandalized parts of her fence. A fresh coat of paint covered the word LIAR, but she left one thing untouched: a small, hand-painted sign near the mailbox. It read, "Surveillance in use. Smile for the camera." A subtle reminder that no one was above accountability, and in this neighborhood, no one would be bullied into silence again. As Sarah turned back toward her house, she spotted something new in a few front yards: small cameras, fresh paint, laughter drifting from porches. Not fear. She didn't just fight Karen. She changed the neighborhood. And for the first time since moving in, Sarah finally felt at home. End of series.